If you've stumbled upon this video, it's no coincidence. Just as one enters a clinic seeking healing, you've come here to find a remedy for your mind. The Stoics likened a philosopher's school to a therapist's clinic because 2,000 years ago, when people faced issues with their minds or souls, they didn't visit a psychiatrist. They went to a philosopher. Philosophers were the doctors of the mind. This video is exactly that clinic. A free therapy session designed to help you find solutions to your troubles and stay resilient in moments of emotional turmoil. A sick person doesn't call for a doctor who speaks fancy words, but one who can heal them. I promise you this video will be good for your soul. As Epictetus said, a philosopher's words are empty if they don't alleviate human suffering. Just as medicine heals the body, philosophy must heal the soul. Every day we grow weary trying to navigate life's challenges. Sometimes we lose control. Other times we grapple with unsettling emotions like anger, anxiety, or jealousy. More often than not, we surrender to these emotions and suffer. It's as if being unhappy, living with pain, or battling depression is our fate. For a moment, imagine your powerful, pain-inducing emotions as a wolf. If this wild animal is set free, it's incredibly strong and can drag you to places you never wanted to go. When angry, you feel the urge to shout. When anxious, you want to flee. In those moments, control lies with the wolf within us, and we blindly follow it. Stoicism doesn't teach us to kill that wolf, but to tame it. It doesn't advocate suppressing emotions, but understanding their causes, accepting them and redirecting them for our own good. What the Stoics discovered is this: we can train ourselves to act calmly despite feeling intense emotions, to move courageously despite feeling anxious. The wolf inside may growl and howl, but we no longer let it dictate our decisions. In this video, we'll discuss how to tame that wolf and rise above your emotions, instead of being overwhelmed by them. So right now, write this in the comments. Today, my emotions won't control me. I will control my emotions. Without further ado, let's begin this therapy session in the clinic of the mind. What's in our control and what isn't. Stoicism can be summarized with a fundamental saying: some things are within our control and some things are not. Everything hinges on this basic distinction. This is, first and foremost, an awakening. It helps us understand our limits as humans and our sphere of influence as individuals. There are things within our control: working hard to succeed, seeking truth, or acting virtuously, for example. On the other hand, being tall, strong, attractive, or born in a specific place is not in our control. The Stoics' point is clear. There are things we inherit, and there are things we build with our own will. Of course, one might argue this distinction isn't always clear-cut. For instance, the Stoics say wealth isn't in our control, but working toward wealth is. If I take the right steps, my chances of becoming wealthy increase, right? However, the Stoics emphasize that our efforts don't guarantee outcomes. Our actions are only part of the equation. The final result is never entirely in our control. Recognizing this distinction is just the first step for the Stoics, a step toward realizing we are limited beings with finite power. In this sense, Stoicism is a call to humility. Humility is nothing but accepting our own fragility and mortality. Conversely, if I have excessive desires, ambitions, or greed, I'll inevitably confront my limitations. I can't attain everything I want. When I encounter obstacles to my desires, I risk unhappiness. In short, if I desire the impossible, I suffer, because by definition, the impossible is unattainable. At this point, one might think, is philosophy just stating the obvious? In a way, yes. But the Stoics bother to point this out because in daily life we constantly forget it. Even though we know certain things are beyond our control, we act as if they're within our grasp. Take the most concrete example: death. I'm aware that my life and the lives of those I love are finite. So when someone I cherish dies, I must accept their absence because birth, life, and death are intrinsic to human nature. According to the Stoics, grieving over a loved one's death is, above all, a logical fallacy. This may sound harsh, but it's true. I cannot make my loved ones live forever. It's a fact. As humans, we must not only know, but deeply accept this fundamental limit of death. Here, we see Stoicism's practical nature. Understanding something isn't just knowing it exists. It's accepting it in the depths of your being, in your flesh and bones. Life is not infinite. We must accept death, our own death. As Epictetus said, learning to live is learning to die. Philosophy is the effort to accept death, not as something sad or regrettable, but as a law of nature, a necessity. The moment I deeply accept it as such, I can free myself from the sorrow, grief, and pain it typically carries. Pause for a moment. At what age, where, or under what circumstances will you die? In your sleep? In a car accident? Or from an incurable disease? When this thought invades your mind, you feel anxiety. According to the Stoics, this anxiety proves you haven't fully accepted the idea of death. In fact, Stoics and Epicureans share a similar view here. Death is, in reality, nothing. Why? Because while we're alive, death isn't here. When death arrives, we're no longer here to suffer it. Thus, we never truly encountered death. So the fear of death isn't about a reality, but about an idea, a mental projection. And here we approach the core of Stoic philosophy, the role of our mental projections. 2. Mental projections and the origin of emotions. As mentioned earlier, mental projections mean we rarely live fully in the present moment. Our minds are preoccupied with future expectations or past nostalgia, yet the only moment we can act in, the present, is where we're almost never present. The real issue with these projections is that they give rise to intense emotions, which the Stoics call passions. Derived from the Greek word pathos, this term means both suffering and being passive, being subject to something. Fear, regret, jealousy, envy, anger, these are all passions. When we're consumed by them, we're no longer active agents, but passive beings dragged by external forces. According to the Stoics, these passions are creations of our own minds, the clearest evidence of our refusal to accept reality as it is. Suppose I'm jealous of my neighbor because they have a nicer car or more successful children. That jealousy is entirely a projection of my mind. If my neighbor didn't have those things, I wouldn't be unhappy. So it's not their possessions causing my frustration or jealousy. It's the meaning I assign to them, and my reaction to that meaning. Thus, the responsibility lies with me. I'm the one allowing these thoughts and emotions to take root. Therefore, this is within my control. And here the Stoic principle applies. I shouldn't be affected by what's not in my control. According to the Stoics, giving in to any passion is a pointless act that doesn't solve the problem. The emotion itself doesn't eliminate its cause. We instinctively blame external factors for our anger. It's not my fault I'm angry, they made me angry. For the Stoics, this is a complete fallacy. If we're angry, it's because we failed to manage our emotions. The person or event is just an excuse we use to justify our inadequacy. We are fully responsible for our emotions. Proof of this lies in people who master their emotions, remaining unshaken even by the most painful events. In everyday language, we call such people stoic, calm, composed, self-controlled. In philosophy, this attitude is the essence of Stoicism, and such a person is a Stoic. This isn't mindless indifference, but a conscious, deliberate calm, rooted in knowing what's in our control and what isn't. 3. Stoicism as a philosophy of action. Does this mean submission or clarity? Everything discussed reveals a core Stoic principle. Instead of trying to change reality, we must transform our perspective on it. This raises a valid question. Isn't this a philosophy of passivity or surrender? If I accept everything as it is, doesn't that mean giving up? Should I just tolerate injustices, lies, or betrayal? Should I ignore someone's immoral behavior, saying, "That's just how it is"? The Stoic response is both yes and no. They urge us to find the strength and wisdom to change what's within our power. The first and greatest challenge is honestly identifying what can truly be changed. Action must occur within the boundaries of our influence. No one expects me to single-handedly revolutionize the world with my limited power. I must accept that my changes and transformations will be modest compared to the world's vastness. Here we face a choice: do what we can or give up entirely, thinking, it won't make a difference anyway. For the Stoics, giving up is shirking responsibility within our sphere of action. Why do we give up? Because we can't bear the idea of not having a grand impact on the world. This is, in fact, an ego-driven surrender. If I can't create the massive change I want, I won't bother. This reasoning stems from a desire for omnipotence and the disappointment when that desire isn't met. For the Stoics, this is another fallacy. Thus, Stoicism isn't a philosophy of surrender, but one of enlightenment and clarity. We focus our actions only on what we can influence and don't worry about the rest. It's not ours to control. It belongs to the world, which continues its course without us. We're part of the world, leaving our mark, but we don't own it. Our role as individuals is not to act for others, but to do what we can. 4. Harmony of thought and action, practical philosophy, and inner freedom. It's said that great achievers share a common trait. They don't waste energy lamenting what's beyond their power, but focus solely on what they can do. This sums up the practical nature of Stoic philosophy. It demands we align our thoughts with our actions, creating inner consistency. Our actions reflect our inner state. If our mind is consumed by chaos, frustration, or anxiety, our actions will bear that mark: indecisive, reactive, and ineffective. But if we act with unwavering enthusiasm and a calm joy that needs no special reason, we approach true freedom. In this state, our freedom isn't tied to unrealistic goals, illusions, or fleeting moods. For the Stoics, this dependence is the most dangerous form of slavery. Emotions act as a filter, distorting our perception of reality and causing us to assign false meanings to events. When I start from this fundamental truth, the world existed before me and will continue after me, everything changes. This cosmic perspective puts my capacity to transform the world in its proper context. It doesn't mean I'm powerless. Rather, the meaning of my actions lies not in reshaping the universe, but in doing what's right and consistent within my sphere of influence. 5. Temperament and wisdom. The art of what we do with what's given. A saying attributed to Jean-Paul Sartre summarizes Stoic thought in modern terms. What matters is not what's done to us, but what we do with what's done to us. This illuminates the Stoic view of the relationship between happiness and wisdom. What does it mean? From a Stoic perspective, we all come into the world with a temperament or character. We have innate tendencies which aren't fully in our control. Some are naturally calm, others anxious, some quick-tempered. The Stoics don't deny this reality. What we're given is partly this genetic and biological inheritance. The cards were dealt at the start of the game, but philosophy and wisdom begin with what we do with those cards. How we play them is up to us. The Stoics argue there's nothing preventing us from working on, understanding, and transforming these tendencies. This transformation comes through understanding the world and its laws. Wisdom is a prerequisite for happiness because it's the ability to grasp the causes of events and our own inner mechanisms. This understanding gives us the power to manage our reactions. For the Stoics, the ultimate goal of existence is to achieve happiness and wisdom, which are inseparable. When I understand how the world works, I reach the point of accepting it as it is. This acceptance isn't passive surrender, but an active state of peace that comes from living in harmony with reality. This peace is happiness itself. Thus, happiness isn't a result of external conditions, but the fruit of an inner effort, the art of wisely managing what we're given. Duty 6. Determinism and Logos, universal reason and the web of causality. The Stoic worldview is built on a deterministic foundation. Everything in the universe happens for a reason, as part of a chain of cause and effect. No event occurs without a preceding series of causes. When the Stoics say, everything has a cause, they mean more than simple mechanical causality. For them, the universe is a single, interconnected whole governed by logos, a universal reason or rational principle. This cosmic reason is the ultimate cause or meaning behind every event. Thus, A thing's cause is also its place within the universe's rational order. This perspective complicates the modern distinction between explaining and justifying. For example, consider a man who commits a crime. In modern law, we might explain his action with psychological trauma or a neurological disorder, but this doesn't morally justify or excuse it. For the Stoics, this distinction almost loses meaning. If an event occurs, it's because it was inevitable within the vast web of cause and effect governed by logos. The crime's occurrence is the inevitable result of countless prior causes. This doesn't mean they approve of the crime. Rather, while we may judge an event as bad from an individual perspective, from a universal perspective, it's part of the rational whole. Our task isn't to judge this whole, but to understand it. Everything has a cause, and that cause is the rational nature of the universe itself. 7. The illusion of chance and the divine perspective. The principle that the universe is entirely rational and understandable leads us to question a common concept: chance. Think of the astonishment you feel when you unexpectedly run into someone you haven't seen in years. What a coincidence, we say. We. For the Stoics, this feeling reflects not a truth about the universe but our own ignorance. A surprise is simply our mental reaction to an event whose causes we don't know. If we knew all the causes leading to that event, we'd see it not as a surprise but as the logical, inevitable result of those causes. Chance is an illusion born of our limited perspective. To understand this, imagine yourself on a hill overlooking a city, seeing all its streets and buildings. Watching people below, you can predict seconds in advance that two individuals walking on different streets will meet at a corner. From your all-seeing divine perspective, this meeting isn't surprising, it's expected. But for the two people colliding at that corner, it's an extraordinary coincidence. The difference lies in perspective. The individuals are trapped in their limited viewpoints, while the observer on the hill sees the causal connections. The Stoics acknowledge we can't know all causes, but we can know that every event has understandable causes. The philosophical effort is to adopt this divine perspective as much as possible, seeing events from above. When we internalize this, nothing in life is truly surprising, as every event is the result of causes we may not see, but know exist. This leads to an unshakable calm in the face of the world's inevitable flow. 8. The ultimate goal and the critique of an inhuman ideal. The rational and orderly nature of the universe, as discussed earlier, defines Stoicism's ultimate goal: living in accordance with nature, with logos. As part of this rational universe, humans should align their behavior with its logical and consistent model. This is an act of imitation, the microcosm of the individual striving to harmonize with the macrocosm of the universe. The more rationally and logically we act, the less we're exposed to pain, frustration, and sorrow. As we free ourselves from emotional dependencies, the greatest obstacle to our rational potential, our freedom and happiness increase. But here we face philosophy's strongest critique. Isn't this an inhuman model? Is absolute objectivity, a mind entirely free of emotions, truly attainable for humans? Isn't this ideal just a fantasy for flawed, emotional beings like us? The Stoic response is surprisingly pragmatic. They're not concerned with whether this ideal can be perfectly achieved. Their question is, can we progress toward this ideal? Can we gradually free ourselves from the grip of our emotions? Their answer is a resounding yes. It's difficult, no doubt. Philosophy has never claimed wisdom or happiness is easy, but it's not impossible. If we can conceive of the project, we can move toward it. Stoicism isn't a destination, but a lifelong journey of effort and practice. 9. The paradox of desire and the hedonic treadmill. Stoic philosophy presents a provocative claim that contradicts modern assumptions about happiness. Happiness isn't achieved by fulfilling desires, but by freeing ourselves from them. Pursuing the satisfaction of desires is the opposite of the path to happiness. To understand this, we must examine the nature of desire. Desire is a feeling of lack, directed toward something external we don't possess. When I desire something, I declare my dependence on it, tying my happiness to obtaining it. This hands the key to our happiness to something external, beyond our control, a fundamental error for the Stoics. This error becomes evident in the moment of satisfaction. For example, smoking a cigarette out of desire provides temporary relief, but it doesn't eliminate the desire. It only delays it. Soon, the same sense of lack returns, demanding the next cigarette. This is the ancient equivalent of what modern psychology calls the hedonic treadmill. We chase the next satisfaction, hoping to catch happiness, but after each fulfillment, we return to our starting point and a new desire emerges. It's an endless cycle. Satisfaction doesn't make us happy. It merely fills a void temporarily, only for that void to reappear. True happiness isn't about obtaining what we desire, but reaching a state of inner fullness where we no longer desire. I only desire something if I feel its absence. If I'm inwardly complete, I need nothing and thus desire nothing. Happiness isn't a quest for satisfaction, but a state of serene sufficiency where the quest ends. 10. Philosophy Embodied, the slave Epictetus and the emperor Marcus Aurelius. The radical nature of the Stoic view of happiness lies in its claim that happiness is entirely independent of conditions. One can be happy in sickness, loneliness, or even physical pain. The greatest proof that this philosophy isn't just an intellectual luxury is that it was embraced by both a slave, Epictetus, and an emperor, Marcus Aurelius. This shows that Stoicism's power stems not from social status or external circumstances, but from an inner stance. A striking example comes from an anecdote about Epictetus. It's said that when his master was twisting his leg with a torture device, Epictetus calmly said, "You'll break it." When the leg broke, he replied with the same calm, "I told you you'd break it." This is a portrait of completed wisdom. Epictetus wasn't immune to pain, but he understood that the pain wasn't him. It was something that belonged to him. He experienced the event without emotional reaction or expression of suffering, remaining in a state of pure observation. This is a radical separation of the mind from the body. While this may seem like an unattainable ideal, even today, individuals like yogis who endure extreme pain through mental focus demonstrate a similar mind-body separation. The Stoics advocated practices like meditation, which directs attention away from bodily sensations to the consciousness itself, building an unshakable inner fortress against pain and external events. 11. The depth of philosophy and an invitation to read. In conclusion, Stoic thought can be summarized along a few key axes. First, Stoicism redefines fate and free will. In modern society, fate is often seen negatively, as the absence of freedom. For the Stoics, the universe's inexorable laws, fate, are not a prison but the rational field where the game is played. Free will isn't the power to change everything but the ability to choose not to be shaken by the world's inevitable flow. Happiness is finding peace within the circumstances we're given. Second, we mustn't confuse Stoicism's depth with modern self-help techniques. While Stoic practices for emotional control can be useful, they represent only a superficial aspect of the philosophy. Stoicism is about regaining captaincy of our existential ship. Emotional self-management is merely a byproduct of understanding the world, not an end in itself. Understanding means grasping that everything has a cause, and that what happens is the ultimate arbiter. Finally, Stoicism isn't just something to talk about. It's a philosophy that impacts us directly when we engage with it. My sincerest recommendation is to read Marcus Aurelius's Meditations. As you read, you'll notice a strange sense of calm and inner alignment. The relentless logical proofs in the text seem to organize the chaos within you and bring balance. In this state of mind, you realize from a rational perspective that everything has its place and reason, and there's no reason for life to be a series of pains. Thank you for watching.